Well, hello everyone, and welcome to this evening's Dhamma talk. My name is Ajahn Wade Buripano. I'm here at Empty Cloud Monastery as a visiting monk, having arrived about a month ago. I was here last spring and had a wonderful experience. I was here for about 3 months last spring, spring of last year, I should say. And it's very nice to be back. Very nice Sangha here, and appreciate the enthusiasm that everyone here has for receiving teachings and for practicing. And welcome to this evening's talk. Ajahn Wade has been running the monastery very well as the resident monastic here, while Bhante Sudaso and Ayasoma are overseas in Italy, working on the project to start Italy's first Bhikkhuni monastery, calling it now Empty Cloud Italia, and so it's heartwarming to think of them working over there. And the Sangha here, of course, is continuing on with the Dhamma practice and study, teaching activities and taking care of the monastery. And Ajahn Wade is kind of running the place as the resident monastic now. We have some other wonderful monastics here as well. We have Bhante Sumita, a monk of great seniority from Sri Lanka. He's been a monk for some 30 years now, an old friend of Empty Cloud Monastery. And Bhante Sanata Vihari, who is an American monk ordained in a Sinhalese tradition. And so he's a lovely monk to have with us as well, giving teachings and practicing here. And I see that a number of people have signed in and are sending in their hellos and their anjalis. And why don't we start with a little bit of a guided meditation. We'll start by sitting in an upright position, whether we're sitting on the floor or in a chair. For some of you, it may even be more appropriate to stand if that suits you. Stand in an upright position and imagine a cord attached to the top of the head, and it stretches gently up into the sky or up to the ceiling, raising us into an upright position quite gently. Feel the back straighten up a bit and the neck on up to the crown of the head. And notice the crown of the head and how it feels. And allow it to relax. Just be aware of how it feels and allow it to relax. And then gently move down to the forehead and notice how it feels. And allow it to relax as well. Notice your temples, and allow any tension to ease out of them. And then slowly and gently move back into the forehead and allow it to relax as well. And then we'll move down to the eyes. And allow them to relax. Notice how they feel and allow them to relax. And then we go down to the cheeks and to the jaw and around the mouth, seeing how they feel. And allowing them to relax as well. Notice how it all feels and allow it to relax. And now we'll shift our attention to the breath coming in and going out. at the nostrils. You simply be aware of the sensation at the nose there. And notice the distinction. Notice when the breath is coming in, when there's a pause, and then when it's going out. And then let the mind go down to the middle of the chest. And be aware of the sensation of the breath ascending and descending at the middle of the chest. And notice your body around the breath as well. The chest, the shoulders, the sides of your torso. And rising and falling in the middle is the sensation of the breath. And now you are home. Now you are home here. And bring the attention more specifically back to the sensation of the breath in the middle of the chest. Notice it rising and falling. And now in that spot, in the middle of the chest, at front, I'd like you to imagine your spiritual heart. Imagine your spiritual heart there. Imagine your spiritual heart coming back there, relaxing into that space. Coming home. As it comes to there, as it comes together there, be aware of the sensation there, and also a little bit of the breath, passing through there as well. You may experience something there at the heart. Be aware and relax, receiving your friend. Right there. Be aware, notice. How does it feel? My friend, the heart. We are listening like a good friend, and we are patient. And we're allowing the heart to relax. And we are aware of the breath as well, as suits the situation. Perhaps more the heart, perhaps more the relaxing breath. On our walk of being mindful in the present moment, of being aware and learning. And now, for those of us for whom it feels appropriate, I'd like to focus our attention again more on the breath. We feel it rise and fall at the chest. And we count. As the breath descends, we count 1. As it rises, we count 2. As it descends, we count 3. We'll go ahead and start this and count up to 10. Once we reach 10, you start again over at 1. And we'll count up to 10 again. We'll do another round of 10 and see if you can also be aware of your upper body to some degree. while you're doing this count of the breath. Now, to the degree that you are able to keep your mindfulness of the breath like this, your awareness, you have a foundation for receiving wisdom. Ajahn Chah, master of Thailand, once said, "When you listen to the Dhamma, listen with your heart, not with your ears." And according to the suttas, the Buddha said, when you're listening to the Dhamma, listen with your whole mind. And so we want to have this basis of mindfulness when we're listening to the teachings of the Buddha. But there is another angle as well. It has been taught by another master that if you're listening to the Dhamma and the heart becomes very calm, you can focus right there. Because in fact, the Dhamma also resides in the heart. And so while listening to this talk, we want to keep our mindfulness, keep our awareness in this grounding. And if we find the mind becomes very calm, we can focus on that and develop the meditation. Now, according to tradition, the Bodhisattva, before he went forth from the home life, in search for the way out of the round of rebirths, traveled out of the palace on 3 consecutive days to see the world for the first time. And they say that on the first day, he saw for the first time in his life an old man, bent, walking with a cane. his body wrinkled, wincing in pain. And the Bodhisattva asked his charioteer what that was. And Channa had to explain, that is an old man, beset by years, and explained that the Bodhisattva also would have to experience just the same thing. The next day, the Bodhisattva went out from the palace to see the world. And for the first time, he saw a sick man lying, ill, in pain. And his charioteer had to explain, that is a sick man. And he explained that the Bodhisattva also would be subject to the same. On the third day, the Bodhisattva went out of the palace to see the world. And on that day, for the first time, he saw a dead man. Carried on a stretcher by his mourning family and friends to a pyre, the body to be burnt. And Channa, the charioteer, had to explain that that is a dead man, and that the Bodhisattva was subject to the same. And this became the basis for the Bodhisattva's holy quest to find what he would later call a road to an ancient city. The path out of the round of rebirths to immortality. What we call birth and death is about the body. When one takes birth, one makes and acquires and attaches to a body. Having attached to this body, one is then subject to old age, disease, and death. At one time, a lady went to see Ajahn Chah for counsel. And as she was talking with him, she mentioned that she had a headache. And Ajahn Chah seized on this opportunity and asked her, "Oh, you have a headache?" And she says, "Yes." And he says, "I have a question for you. Have you ever had a toothache?" And the woman said, "Well, yes." He said, "I have had a toothache, Reverend Father." And he said, "Have you ever had a stomach ache?" And she said, "Well, yes, Reverend Father, I have had a stomach ache in the past." And he said to her, "Have you ever had a tail ache?" And she said, "A tail ache?" And he says, "Yes, have you ever had a tail ache?" And she says, "Well, no, I've never had a tail ache." And Ajahn Chah said, "Well, why haven't you ever had a tail ache?" And she said, "Well, Reverend Father, I don't have a tail." And Ajahn Chah said, "Exactly." Infatuated with the body and all of the things that it can do, we make and acquire and identify with and attach to it. And we should be aware what comes with this body. That when one takes birth, one is subject to aging unless one dies young. Then we are subject to disease and we are subject to death. And it was this contemplation that led the Bodhisattva later to teach his disciples to contemplate these facts of life frequently. Contemplating them himself, he said, noticing that he also was subject to old age, his infatuation with youth entirely fell away. Noticing that he also was subject to disease, his infatuation with health fell away. In noticing that he was subject to death, his infatuation with life also fell away. And he went forward on his quest to find the way out of birth and death. And they say that from the moment that he went forth from the palace until he attained perfect self-enlightenment, he never relented. He never paused in his efforts, but he continued trying ceaselessly to find the way out, to find that road to the ancient city. One master said that practicing walking meditation, the Bodhisattva was so persevering that he almost collapsed 3 separate times. because having reached the limits of human physical endurance, his spirit still sought. And that was the kind of spirit that led him to complete victory. And that night, when he attained perfect self-enlightenment, he was practicing just this: meditation on the breath. He noted to his disciples that within this entire body, within this body, you can find the entire world. And this breath is a body within the body. And so when we focus our attention on the breath, we are walking that road that the Buddha followed to the ancient city. So let us bring our attention there again, to the breath. Now, mindfulness of breathing can also be a great friend in a time of illness. Being aware of the breath there, relaxing the body as well with our mindfulness, becoming aware and relaxing can help us be at ease in a time of pain. If we are unwell now, we may feel that. We use a gentle awareness, if we need to be relaxed. If we are well and healthy now, we can practice our focus and our awareness and feel the relaxation and the increased awareness. And it will be there for us in a time of need. And if it feels suitable, we can do a wisdom contemplation now. Notice the body again, the torso, as we are also aware of the breath. And be aware of how the body feels. Feel its weight. And notice that this body is like a cave. And we are in the cave of this body. The breath flowing up and down within the rib cage. And then if we begin to feel distracted, we come back again simply to the breath. Noticing it ascending and descending. There in the middle of the chest. Now, something else the Buddha later told his disciples was that we should frequently recollect that we are the owners of our actions. And that we live dependent on our actions. There is this world with its gratification and with its suffering. And there is the road to the ancient city. That is the pathway of skillful action. And this practice of meditation is the highest form of skillful action. Over time, we nurture our meditation in the soil of good practices like generosity, keeping precepts to live in tune with the moral laws of the universe, of worship, of calming meditation and wisdom. We forgive ourselves for our shortcomings. We forgive others. We let go everything they have done. And we generate a heart of loving kindness for all living beings as we have for ourselves. Thinking, may all beings be well, happy, and peaceful. May all beings be well, happy, and peaceful. May all beings be well, happy, and peaceful. And this makes for a wholesome life, a life well lived, a life of principle, a life of value. Living in this way, we can reflect that due to our own past karma, we have the blessing of this life as humans, and receiving the teachings of the Holy Lord Buddha. We used them to live well. Now, I'd like to talk a little bit about the process of meditation as we've practiced it this evening. You may recall that I started out by guiding us to sit in an upright position. This is conducive to being aware and alert, and is more comfortable for sitting for a while. And then I directed the attention to our heads and went step by step through a process of awareness and relaxation. Before becoming aware of the breath of the nostrils, and then following it down to the chest. I believe that many of us spend a lot of our time in our heads. and even outside of ourselves altogether. And so this beginning to the meditation is intended to bring attention to the head, to relaxation, and collecting the heart there for those for the aspects of the heart that are out in the outside world. Through this process of step-by-step growing awareness of our heads, and then the breath, and then sliding down into the body, this is a process of then bringing the heart down closer into the body, bringing it further down into the body for further grounding. Having centered the mind to some degree there in the chest, I then ask us to be aware of the torso, the chest, the wider chest area, the sides of the body to the extent that we could, gathering the mind more and more within the body. Because the heart goes to that of which it is aware. The heart collects at an area where we draw its attention. But I had recourse to the breath through this and brought attention back to the breath at the center of the chest. Having something very specific and relatively small makes it easier for us to collect our minds. So this is a bit of a dance between processes of collecting the mind, developing awareness, relaxing, drawing the mind back down into the body, and grounding. And like a dance, meditation is an art. And if we're sensitive, if we're aware of what it is we're trying to do, then we can be sensitive to how it's playing out and guide the process. But a simpler meditation, for those of us who would like it, is to simply be aware of the bodily form and the sensations in it. Gradually moving through the body, being aware of the sensations. Or being aware of the breath. Just simply being aware of the breath at a spot that feels comfortable. Breathing naturally and being aware of it, gently, in a way that is relaxing. And if we find the mind wandering, which is so normal, then we simply become aware of what it has wandered to. Be aware of the distraction. And we note it. Being aware of it and letting it go. So if we're scanning the body and then find ourselves thinking of the past or the future, or if we're being aware of the breath and are distracted by a sound or by a bodily sensation, then we would simply become aware of it. With our alertness, become aware that we're distracted and note thinking, 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 or hearing, 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 or feeling, feeling, feeling. And with that same quality of awareness that we were using for the body or for the breath, we become aware of the distraction in that way, noting it. And when it leaves, when it goes away, or when the heart loses interest in it, we gently come back to the theme of meditation we were practicing. These are two very basic kinds of meditation that we can practice with relation to the body. When the heart becomes calm and our mindfulness is steady, so for example, when we were breathing and we were counting the breath, it was an exercise in honing our attention and fixing it on the breath, developing our faculties of mindfulness and focus, our concentration. We did 3 rounds of counting, and then I said, for those of you for whom it feels appropriate, we want to then become aware of the body again. We did some more body awareness, as I recall. If my memory is faulty, in any case, this is a suitable time when the heart becomes still and aware, focused. We can then do a wisdom contemplation, as we did later in the talk, noticing, what is this body? How does it feel? Through the experience of the sensation of it, the body learns. The mind learns. What does this body actually feel like? And we can become aware of its weight. If the mind is calm, and we note that inside this frame, inside this body, there is the skeleton, there are the bones, there is the rib cage. For the heart, this is like turning its light onto its surroundings and seeing for perhaps the first time what it is so attached to. Or we can contemplate, once the heart is steady and calm, we can contemplate the subjects for frequent recollection, one or more of them, the subjects of old age, disease, and death. And that all that which we find dear and pleasing will change and will be separated from us. Or we can contemplate that we are the owners of our actions and we live dependent on our actions. Whatever we do, for good or for ill, of that we will be the heirs. And in turn, what this does is it develops our parami of wisdom. Our parami, usually translated from the Pali into English as perfections, are the spiritual virtues which form the raw materials for our lives and our spiritual lives. Qualities like generosity, morality, renunciation, and energy, and wisdom, and others. We can grow our wisdom parami, our virtue of wisdom, through hearing and learning. We can develop it to a greater extent through contemplation. and to the highest extent, the greatest extent, through meditation. So if we hear a teaching, we understand it intellectually, for example, about old age, disease, and death, and then later we think about it. We contemplate it. This is the development of wisdom through contemplation. But then if we make the heart calm, and we see reality, like the composition of the body, or if we contemplate the old age, disease, and death, separation from what we hold dear and our karma, then it sinks in more deeply, more of the heart absorbs it because the heart is calm and it's more unified. And we develop more in this way. And I think this technique is useful for many of us because of the personality our hearts have to be very active. We can capitalize on that. If we make the heart calm for a little while, then we contemplate with it. We develop some of our wisdom parami that way. This in turn may make the heart calmer, and we return to a theme that helps us develop that calm. And this is another way in which the art of meditation is a dance between using calm and wisdom. Okay. I have some questions coming in. This is a bit of a shift now. Please feel free to change your posture a bit. You want to do so mindfully. You may notice that stirring even a little bit can be a little bit disturbing. We want to keep our mindfulness in that calm. We can take some of these questions, see if I can answer some of these. You can type in questions as you like. And for those of you who are dwelling in calm with your meditation, if you prefer to do that, please continue. Let's see the first question here. Okay. We have a great question from Sarah. She'll put on the screen here, I believe. Okay. Thank you, Ajahn, for the wonderful talk. If I can ask this question, if everyone is subject to aging, sickness, and death, what's the meaning of this life? For monastics, it's probably seeking for the ultimate liberation. But what about lay people? She says. How do we find the meaning of life? Well, I don't know why you would say for monastics it would be the ultimate liberation. Implying not lay people. I think lay people also can be trying for the ultimate liberation. You know, I like to encourage everyone to do so who's so inclined. You know, we also can be trying, for those of us who feel like maybe that's too far away and who like to break down, big tasks into smaller pieces, can be trying for sotapanna, the first level of attainment, um, of which the suttas say, the Buddha told his disciples, is greater than becoming king of the entire universe. If you had all the resources in the universe and you could do what you wanted with them, and you were the Lord of the entire universe, actually attaining sotapanna would be better. So that's something you could be trying for, or for many people, it's the development of good qualities within themselves. Maybe for use in future lives to continue on a spiritual quest, or perhaps for the benefits they see in doing so in this life. If we feel like we can grow in loving kindness, for example, which is another parami, another of the spiritual virtues, this can be so useful to us in this life in so many ways. And it feels good. It feels really good. So the development of loving kindness, for example, which is another simple meditation we can do, like the breath meditation I described, or the meditation on the sensations of the body, we can grow in emotional intelligence and learn how to manage our emotions better, and so that we feel better, and with our emotional intelligence growing, learn how to interact with others better. And if you can grow your emotional intelligence, you can make more money, which is an advantage too. You see that I'm trying to hit on a wide range of possible benefits in practicing the Buddha's teachings. And these different benefits will appeal to different people. And for each of us, many different kinds of benefits are quite useful in life. And so people can use the Buddha's teachings to find it easier to live and to find many benefits in this life. They can use the Buddhist teachings to help them gain a better rebirth in a future life, if they have some faith in that. They can use the Buddhist teachings to attain sotapanna, or even to try to attain enlightenment. And these goals are very attainable. It's the teaching of the meditation masters of Thailand that as you develop your spiritual virtues, you'll grow better and better along the spiritual path. And as long as you don't give up, as long as you keep trying, you're bound to succeed in achieving your spiritual ambitions. In these sort of ambitions, spiritual goals, many people find to be worthwhile goals in life. And I think perhaps on a more modest level, that is still really, truly wonderful. I think that if we can at least live by our principles, if we develop over time through contemplation what our principles in life are, perhaps informing ourselves with the Buddha's teachings and the teachings of other wisdom traditions, and noticing the cause and effect relationships in our lives, and develop principles around which we live and try to live by them, that while so much else in life is very uncertain, whether we'll be able to find meaning and satisfaction in a career, for example, or in our relationships, for example, that when we go through the trials of old age and disease, when we face the end of our lives, if we look back and we can say to ourselves, well, I tried to live by principles, then that will feel very good, I think. We can offer those kinds of reflections. All right. Wonder if there's some thank yous for the talk. It's very nice. And some greetings. It's very nice. And wonder if we have any questions from the monastics or from the lay guests that we have here tonight. Anthony's joined us. I'm sitting very quietly. Okay. Yeah, so this approach of wisdom and calm and wisdom, using the active mind, you know, it can be it can be a problem, I think, sometimes in meditation if we sit down to focus on something like the breath or the bodily sensations, sometimes loving kindness, and where the mind gets caught up in so many things, it can be distracted, and our minds are very active. I think in this day and age, so much, you know, all the things we're trying to do, and so if we can put the thinking and active mind to use, but once we feel the mind become calm, or calmer at least than it was when we started, we feel a little bit of calm, then we can try picking up a wisdom contemplation. Now, the calm is an essential ingredient because it helps the heart, as I said, to absorb the lessons. You know. It helps it to contemplate more deeply, to stay with the contemplation, you might say. But also, it's very good for helping us remain at a kind of an even keel. Some subjects of wisdom contemplation can be, can be a little bit difficult to take sometimes. Maybe things we don't want to think about. And if they're contemplated quite a bit, they can lead us to some darker moods, even if the heart isn't calm and balanced. This is something else to be sensitive to as well. If thinking about old age, disease, and death, for example, is saddening, we can be sensitive to that and notice that the intention is not to make ourselves sad. And so we think of the skillful means of how to interact with our hearts at a time like this. If we're experiencing sadness, we can become aware of the sadness, for example, or whatever emotions are coming up, just as though we were listening to a friend patiently. Be aware of it with our mindfulness and allow the heart to kind of work through it with this awareness of what it's going through, kind of objectively, the same kind of awareness we have when we're paying attention to the breath, just an objective awareness. We can practice this awareness of our feelings as well. We also might, depending on the circumstances, go back to something like the sensations of the body, so in a way that we find calming, or contemplate the breath, that is, be aware of the breath, be mindful of the breath again, in a way that is steadying and calming. So these two aspects of meditation, the calming aspect and the wisdom aspect, we need to be alert to, we're attentive to them, so that when the heart becomes calm, we see it as an opportunity, if we like, to develop some wisdom. If we start becoming distracted or scattered, start thinking about other things, then we come back to calming. If we start feeling negative emotions, start feeling difficult emotions, so we can be with those emotions. In doing so, learn a bit about the emotions and allow the heart to be calm through this process as well, just through this simple awareness. One aspect of the wisdom involved in meditation I'm talking about, but I haven't named, is kind of this right view. Right view must underpin our meditation. And there are many different aspects to right view, and it expresses itself in different ways in different circumstances. One aspect of right view that we can utilize with regard to difficult emotions is that the emotions, like all other conditioned formations, all formations that arise dependent on conditions, like emotions, must be inconstant and impermanent. They'll change, and eventually they'll pass away. They're also ultimately not satisfying. that which is impermanent and inconstant cannot be ultimately satisfying because it will pass away. And that which is impermanent and not satisfying, not ultimately satisfying, is also not us and it's not ours. And so if we're objectively watching, experiencing an emotion, for example, then we can see it in this way. Just knowing as we're experiencing it, without really having to think about it. Just knowing within ourselves that this emotion is not me and it's not mine. It's a natural phenomenon, you might say, that's going to change and is going to pass away. And we have another question written in. There's a good question, happens to be about emotions also. How to cope with the emotion of regret, like what I should have done but haven't done. Something, I think it's such a common human experience. This is one of the things we all have to experience. I think that things we should have done but we haven't done. And if we, I think on one hand, if we simply know that this is normal, that not having done things that we should have done is something that we all experience. None of us is perfect, and we haven't lived perfectly, and no one has done everything that they should do. This one contemplation we can do. It isn't specifically us. It isn't just us. This is normal. That there are things that we should have done, but we haven't done them. This is one sort of wisdom contemplation. It actually can be applied to a wide range of circumstances and experiences, that they're actually normal. So many of the things that we experience in samsara, and actually there's a reference to this in the suttas at one point where the Buddha says to his disciples, whenever you see someone experiencing pleasure, you can contemplate that at some point in the past, you have experienced a pleasure just like that also. And whenever you see someone experiencing suffering, you can contemplate that at some time in the past, I also have experienced just that same sort of suffering. And that so many wonderful and tragic and painful and pleasant experiences that happen in our lives, so many of them that are surprising, some of them that distress us or make us elated, or depress us or disappoint us, they're actually all normal human experiences within the range of normal experiences for this experience of samsara, this life of samsara. And we don't have to get caught up in thinking about them being special or being unique to us, that they're universal. And so is this kind of regret. And so if we think about it in that way and recognize that actually, according to the Buddha's teachings, regret is what they call, it's an unprofitable emotion. It's one way of translating the word akusala. It could be translated as unwholesome, it has been, but perhaps more accurately as unskillful or unprofitable. It actually doesn't really lead us on to doing anything skillful and that's good for us, And so if we have our alertness and our mindfulness and realize we're experiencing regret, and do a contemplation like this, we can contemplate, as I said, or be mindful of emotion if the heart is calm enough, and experience its change and its passing away, as long as we turn our awareness to it. All right, we're coming up to the end of our time. And so I'd like to congratulate you, Anumotana, rejoice in the goodness of Dhamma practice that we've all been engaged in and learning. I hope you'll all prosper in the Dhamma, continue your practice in so many ways. We'll have more live streams over the next few days. You can check them out on the website. And Saturday evening, we'll have an in-person Dhamma session here at 6 o'clock in the evening. Goes for about an hour and a half. And on Sunday afternoon from 1 to 4 also, with guided meditation and talk and Q&A. May you all be well, happy, and peaceful. Have a good night.